what is the exercise we're doing here to help an executive director, aka me, sort of make sense of what to do with this momentum? And what we're doing naturally here is we're talking about high impact work. So we have a couple of the next big things sort of like lined up here. And yet the question still remains, like, where do I put my time?
If you think about it like a game, like almost like game theory of strategy, where it's like, okay, there's a certain set of rules and constraints within any game, and there's a goal. You want to win. So now, given all that's true, what moves are you actually going to make? End of the day, it's really just the choices that you make to try and win the game.
I'm Eric Ressler.
I'm Jonathan Hicken.
And this is Designing Tomorrow.
Eric, I find myself in this like strange and beautiful and unexpected place 5 years into my executive directorship at the Seymour Center. And that is that everything's working. We've got some momentum, and I've been wrestling with what to do with this momentum. And I imagine we got listeners who are in similar positions, right? You've made some really good choices. You've gotten some good funding. You're humming.
Yeah.
And I think there's this question we all ask of like, how do I take best advantage of this moment?
I love this, man. I mean, first of all, clearly all of our listeners are similarly positioned because they take our advice every day. And they're just humming along, making more money than they ever thought they would, making their missions happen. No, I mean, I joke, but I do think that we spend a lot of time thinking about how to solve problems in this space. But this is a different flavor of problem, which is like, we've arrived. We've hit our mission goals, or we've hit a stride. We've got some momentum. There's still work to do. There's still problems, of course, right? But like, how do we take that momentum and best leverage it for future growth? I think is what you're saying.
That's exactly right. So let me just set the stage for the Seymour Center, and then I want some of your coaching. Like I want you to kind of like help me think about.
Be careful what you wish for, man.
So abridged history, 2021, 5 years ago, I start. Seymour Center is still closed due to the pandemic. And so a lot of the early years were just like rebuild, rebase. We got to get back to business. Middle years were really about like establishing this new vision of becoming though we didn't articulate it at the time, a sort of a collaborative center for coastal resilience. The last couple of years have been about testing and trying and prototyping and getting a few really big projects off the ground, including some great new exhibits, the podcast, this sort of headline Blue Whale Skeleton project. All of these things have happened and are happening and are going really well. Visitation's up, funding is in a good position. So the team is solid. So I'm like, there's this moment recently where I was like, I've never felt this before. Right? Like
what do I do?
What do I do with this?
Yeah.
So, it feels like momentum.
Yeah.
And truly, I've been thinking about how to take advantage of it.
Awesome, man. Well, first of all, congrats.
Thank you.
It's an awesome position to be in and a well-deserved one. I mean, well, let me just ask, like, what's on your mind? Like, what ideas are in the hopper, so to speak, that you're like, well, we've arrived here. There's still work to do on these things, but generally, like, progress is being made. Like, because what I'm also hearing is, like, although you're highly involved in a lot of these things, your team's running these things, they're on track. So now you kind of need to tee up the next thing.
That's exactly right. So, and again, the team is really incredible. So there's a lot of our work that doesn't require me at all, which is like a very, very privileged place to be in.
Yeah.
And, we have this case for support, which we did with Cosmic. And so we have a couple of the next big things sort of like lined up here.
Yep.
And yet, the question still remains, like, where do I put my time? So the things that, immediately where I go is fundraising.
Yeah.
Right? So now we've got like demonstration. We've got proof of the capacity and ability to execute on big things. And so how do I sort of leverage that to go bring in more money for the next big thing? Like, that's the obvious one.
Of course. But you also kind of need something to fundraise toward, right? Which I'm not saying you're done and there's not plenty of things to fund that just need general operating support even, right? But you also need to have a compelling story about who you guys are becoming. And I think you're still not done stepping into the role that you've set up for yourself from an identity perspective in my mind fully, right? Would you agree?
I agree, right? And so like I've been thinking about my time lately in these two buckets, right? Which is like, funding and visibility, right? Like I'm like, what are the two things that I can uniquely do for this organization that nobody else on my team either can or has the time to do? And fundraising and visibility are sort of are two things that really sort of fall into that bucket. And so under visibility, I would also sort of think about like reputation and sort of,
Yep.
the ecosystem and all that stuff.
Okay, so fundraising and visibility are kind of your two main priorities as executive director. Where do you think there's still room to grow in both of those, like personally and also just in terms of where you spend your energy and time?
Yeah, on the fundraising side, I mean, I think that we have established enough credibility that we could go after some more aggressive gifts for some more speculative projects. So what I mean by that is like, I've got this vision for a new educational experience for like high school students, which we don't have right now.
Yeah.
Which I think would fill a very important gap in the community.
Yep.
And I think that we've built the credibility to go to approach a funder and say, hey, help us pilot this for 3 years or something like that. Which like 3 years ago, without the momentum that we have now, would have been a much more difficult conversation.
Right. Okay. And then what about on the visibility side?
Yeah, I have known for years that visibility for Seymour Center has been a weakness.
Yeah.
Marketing and just like brand awareness.
Well, even just like the actual space for listeners who aren't in Santa Cruz is like on the cusp of the edge of town, right? You're not going to pass it. You're definitely not passing it by mistake.
No. This is not a place you're just going to stumble upon.
Yeah.
No. You have to deliberately choose to come here.
Which is part of its appeal.
Right,
It's
right.
like a little crown jewel on the outside of town.
Gorgeous setting. Like people come here for the setting a lot of the time. And yet the visibility, that's a problem, right? For museums or science centers or whatever that are located in their downtowns, they get a lot of just like happenstance traffic.
Right.
We're a destination, so that doesn't happen. We've got a couple of core programs that are well known within those specific like circles, namely like field trips for local schools, well known in that circle, but otherwise like generally sort of like, oh, I think I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Kind of one of those. Right. So, and my belief is that with more visibility, we could strengthen the business and advance impact.
So let's go, in situations like this, I can find it to be helpful to go into more of like an imaginative state versus like a pragmatic or constraints-based mode of thinking, which that's important too. But like, let's imagine for a second, you break into the next category or level or whatever you want to use, whatever word you want to use to describe that next level. From a fundraising standpoint and from a visibility standpoint, let's maybe take each. Like, what would that look like for you? Yeah,
so on the fundraising side of things, it would be major transformations of the physical space.
Okay.
And major new programmatic development.
Okay.
So like I'm talking like new and sustainable education programs.
Okay.
The funding to do those things.
Okay, but like structurally speaking on the fundraising side, are we talking about like multi-year general operating grants or like major almost like capital campaign style fundraising or a mix of those two?
Probably a mix of those two.
Okay, and what about on the visibility side?
On the visibility side, this is like what success looks like is more visitorship.
Okay.
Because with more visitorship, that strengthens the sort of the economic side of things, ticket sales, memberships, et cetera.
Sure.
So that's going to provide a certain level of earned income that could sustain the operational sort of level.
Yep.
But it also is sort of helping us deliver on this greater idea for impact that we have, which is to help this community become more environmentally resilient to a changing ocean and planet.
Right. And what's in your way right now in those things, on both of them, in your mind?
On the fundraising side of things, I think it is credibility, which I think that we are earning.
Yep. So progress there.
Yeah. And I think it is a better brand story and sort of brand presence.
Yeah.
I think those two things are really true. And I think we have improved upon those things, partly due to Cosmic's help. In the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I would put way more credit in your plate than ours on that, frankly. I mean, I know we've helped with some of the strategy, but on the execution end, like, you've taken those ideas and run with them and, done a really good job there. And what's striking me is that these two categories are really self or reinforcing.
Oh, for sure.
Right, which is not a coincidence. And so a lot of the things that are going to be better for visibility are going to be better for fundraising too.
Yeah, and vice versa.
So I guess what I'm trying to understand is like, and I still feel I'm getting a little more clarity now, but like I can't taste what the future looks like for the Seymour Center in your description yet. I can't smell it. I can't, like, it doesn't feel tangible enough for me. So like, and maybe that's because it's still emerging, right? You're in this imaginative state where like it's not fully penciled out yet, right? Like you have some ideas around what that might be, but like, do you have more detail in your brain? Like, do you have a particular project in mind? Do you have a particular, I really wish our funding were 60% earned revenue instead of only 40%, or like, I'm feeling like I get the gist of it, but now I'm like, okay, what does it really look like for you?
Yeah. So, okay, good. I see where you're going with this, and just bringing this back to the, like, how do we make most of momentum?
Yeah.
I think part of what I've been struggling with is like, I actually have a couple of options.
Yeah.
Like I have a couple of things I could be doing.
So you see multiple paths forward.
I see multiple paths,
Yeah.
right? So one is, and sort of one of the themes for the team this year is enhancing the gathering space. So like one angle is go all out on fundraising for physical improvements to the space.
Yep.
Okay. Another one is to go all out on building out this new educational program.
Mm-hmm.
Another one would go all out on Seymour Studios and the media play. So all three of these paths are viable.
Yeah.
And I guess one of my fundamental questions is like, how do I ascertain which one is the best to go after?
Well, okay, counter question.
Yeah.
Why choose just one?
It's kind of like, as the great Ron Swanson from Parks and Recreation once said, never half-ass two things, full-ass one thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a strategy, and I'm not necessarily saying it's wrong, but the reason I ask is because I also, similar to the like fundraising versus visibility thing, like I see how all of those things might reinforce each other.
Right.
I think especially the gathering and the media side, like especially if visibility is a big element to it, putting a bunch of time and effort into making the space more badass, but no one comes, not a good use of time. Right. So, and you said visitation's up, like obviously you're already working on that, but I can see how, I mean, I think back to something you recently did, which I thought was really cool, which was the first and I think so far only live podcast with Julie Packard at the Seymour Center in the La Felice room. You know, we got to set it up with a beautiful ocean background, and it was incredible. I mean, we had like 80, 100 people here.
Yeah,
something
that's
like that.
about right. Yeah.
And like, to me, we've talked about this on the show before. Like when we look at the strengths that the Seymour Center has to offer, undeniably one of those strengths is the physical space, right? That is an asset that many orgs would be so thrilled to have, right? And you've done a really good job at utilizing that. And I think also a really good job at not just over indexing on like, well, it's a museum, come in and come to the museum, see the exhibits, and like that's the whole Seymour Center brand. Obviously, it's so much more than that. And you're building, I think, a lot on that foundation. But if you are becoming a center for coastal resilience and you need to educate and influence people and you're doing that digitally, I also think we're in a time where like in-person gathering is like we're rediscovering how important that was in our lives.
So I think what I'm hearing you saying is like there's a fourth option on the table, which is to like create more opportunities for gathering on top of like making the gathering place even cooler.
Yeah, and I think you kind of have to do both, right? Like,
yeah.
because I think as much as the space is really cool already, I can imagine a version, especially if we're in this imaginative state, where like there's more of that, where it feels more than just an exhibit museum, right? Which it already does, don't get me wrong.
So,
I remember early days you were talking about bringing a coffee cart in here and like food.
That's still coming.
Okay, all right, yeah.
We do have food now, but we don't have the coffee cart yet.
Yeah.
So let's zoom this out, right? Because I could talk about Seymour Center obviously for ages, but like what I want to extract here is what is the exercise we're doing here to help an executive director, aka me, sort of make sense of what to do with this momentum.
Yeah.
And what we're doing naturally here is we're talking about like high impact work.
Yeah.
And high impact work in this case has been somewhat already defined by like doing this work. We did this work already. We made for the case for support. We know what our core initiatives are.
Right.
And so like the main takeaway I'm hearing is, Jonathan, don't overthink this. You've got the plan. You've got the path. Like, just go do it now.
Hey friends, real quick before we continue today's episode. I'm Eric Ressler, founder and creative director at Cosmic. Cosmic is a creative agency purpose-built for nonprofits and mission-driven organizations. For the last 15 years, we've helped leaders like you nail your impact story and sharpen your strategy. But we're not here to just leave you with a fancy slide deck and a pat on the back. We roll up our sleeves and help you bring our ideas to life through campaigns, creative, and digital experiences. Our work together helps you earn trust, connect deeply with your supporters, and grow your fundraising and your impact. If you value the thinking we share here and want it applied to your biggest challenges, let's talk at designbycosmic.com. All right, back to today's conversation. Okay, so I don't know if this is going to track, but I'm going to give it a shot. I've been thinking a lot about strategy and like what that word actually means. We've done a lot of episodes about that recently, and I've thought about this new, I don't know, call it a metaphor, call it whatever, or like mental model for strategy, which is like, if you think about it like a game, like almost like game theory of strategy, where it's like, okay, there's a certain set of rules and constraints within any game. You have those two in real life right in the center. And there's a goal, right? You want to win. What does winning look like for the Seymour Center, right? That's essentially your vision, your impact statement, your theory of change, et cetera, right? Like, so now, given all that's true, like, how are you going to best play the game? Like, what moves are you actually going to make? Are you going to take the safe moves? And like, that's a strategy, right? You're ahead, like the tortoise and the hare story, right? Like, are you going to take the tortoise way where you're keeping that momentum and you're just like, every year incrementally improving? Or are you going to make a big, bold bet that could cost you the game or could take you to the finish line and deliver that impact more quickly? I don't know if that's helpful for listeners, but to me, I think I get like when we think about strategy, you think about it a lot in terms of like strategic planning or decks or docs that you share with your team. But at the end of the day, it's really just the choices that you make to try and win the game.
Yeah, I love that metaphor works really well for me, and I'm thinking of Settlers of Catan here. And I'm like, do I load up on wool? Like, nobody wants wool.
Everyone's always got too much sheep, man. Yeah.
So, I mean, we have this other sort of like factor, which is this new expense, which I've mentioned in another episode, which is like right there, and I need to figure out how to right size that new expense. And like, I don't know, I look ahead and I'm like, I don't think playing the tortoise game here is gonna solve that problem.
Yeah, if you just start to graph it out year over year, that expense doesn't go away, right?
No, and so even actually as we're talking this through, I mean, this is kind of an aha moment of like, okay, each of those opportunities I just laid out have probably differing revenue potentials.
Yeah.
And I know I need to solve this expense problem. So really I should, episode over. We just like, I gotta work on the one that's gonna bring in the most money.
It reminds me of like pay down your debts before you make new investments, right?
Right.
Which is like not nearly as fun, but probably the responsible choice. But I don't know. I'm gonna push back on that a little bit because like, okay, yes, you need to have a solution to this new revenue reality that you find yourself in unexpectedly. But is the safe way, the stay on track way, the way to do that? Or is that where you need to get creative to create a whole new source of revenue or to elevate? Because I mean, I guess what I would say, I respect the strategic clarity that you have already. And to me, what I'm hearing you wrestle with is like, where do I now put my energy and time investment to like spearhead the things I have in motion? But they're all, through the lens of Science Solutions Santa Cruz, right? And through your mission and your understanding of who you are and who you're becoming. So you've done that, a lot of that foundational work. I think so to me, what I'm hearing you say is like, okay, now what? Like now, how do I take that momentum? It's working. And how do I make sure not to lose the opportunity to kind of like build from a place of stability instead of scarcity?
That's it. I mean, that's fundamentally the question here.
Yeah.
And I find myself wrestling because I'm getting almost like a little antsy.
Yeah.
Where it's like a little strange, like walking through the halls and being like we're good.
Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah.
This is working.
Right.
That's a strange feeling. and also it is like, it feels like a bit of a a big choice to make, right? I mean, it feels like a bit of a burden to say like, I could develop this or that, maybe a little bit of all of them, and I got to make the right choice here in a way.
So, okay, here's what I'm reflecting on hearing you say that is like, how did you get there? You got there not by doing all the things that were best practices or standard or expected or based on the old perception of the Seymour Center as an entity. You did it by thinking bigger, taking risks, being experimental, learning about what worked, like deep listening with the community. And so I think, like, to me, you got there not by just kind of like business as usual. So I think the trap would be like, okay, it's working. Now we just move into business as usual mode. I think that's how orgs stall out a lot of times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I would, obviously with intention and deep thought and deep thinking and listening, think about like, how do I now take what's working and elevate it? So we've got some visibility through the pod and through some of these things. What's the next level of that look like? And always checking that against, does that deliver more impact for the people that I care about? Or is that just not a good use of my time? And then from the fundraising side, to me, I think when you do those other parts well, opportunities for fundraising naturally present themselves, right? Because you've got a new big project you want to fund, or because you've got something you're just so excited about, you can't help but have that excitement influence other people who are aligned with your mission and your values, right? So it's like, I think you can solve all those problems at once, basically.
One thing that comes to mind, which I think we all, executive directors, all have to think about, is like making sure that what we're personally motivated by and what's best for the organization, those things are in alignment.
Exactly. And that's why I put that little clause, like, check back on your impact, right?
Yeah.
Like, because I think at some level, every decision needs to be defendable against your goals for impact, right? And that's really the distinction between a true social impact organization and an org that's claiming that, and it's basically just lip service.
When it comes to funding, this might actually be a moment where the sector, and I'm going to overgeneralize here,
Sure.
right? That the sector might find itself challenged. And what I mean by that is like, we are not unique in the sense that we are doing something that's working and we've gotten to a good place, right? That happens for a lot of us.
Mm-hmm.
And also in the sector, like we are collaborative. We often avoid taking full responsibility for, really great results. We want to share in that win. We want to share in that success. Maybe like humility starts to factor in.
Yeah.
And so do we miss out on these opportunities to sort of like leverage that momentum because we're not sort of like taking credit?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, where my mind was going is like, I got to go in front of a funder and be like, we did that.
Yep.
We owned it, and we did that. We could do it again.
Yep.
And there's like a certain level of confidence and certain like boldness that is going to be required of me in order to take advantage of the fundraising opportunity and the momentum right now.
Right. And I think what I'm hearing is that although you guys in many cases either did do all of that on your own, you at least led that work, but maybe you also did it in partnership with some other orgs.
Absolutely. And that was more of a reflection on the sector as a large.
Okay,
like,
gotcha, yeah.
right? Like, is this something that happens? It's a question to you.
I don't see, I see this in a lot of different ways. Like what I generally see when people are pitching funders and generating case for support, and we get this feedback sometimes, we need more evidence. We need more stats. We need more impact metrics. And I think some of that matters. Like, I think we do need to be level-headed about this work. It can't be a purely emotional act. And I don't think that stuff matters as much as we all think it does. Because at the end of the day, when you look at how people actually make decisions, even funders who claim to be very evidence-based, highly simplified, it comes down to vibes. Like, I'm just going to say it.
Yeah, relationships,
network. Do they feel it? Can they feel it? Do they resonate with the vision that you've put out, and do they want to be part of making that continue to happen or come to life? Like, at the end of the day, it's really that simple. Now, do they have to feel that you're credible in order to make that choice? Like, yes. Do you have to have a good reputation? Do you have to be able to defend your credibility? Like, all of that is true. But I think what you're also saying is like you have to be willing to claim the wins.
Yeah.
And I do sometimes see orgs who have trouble doing that. And I do think that you have to be careful about how, like, I've also seen orgs try and claim things that, like, yo, you were one of the groups that did this, but like this group actually led this thing. So I also do sometimes see orgs come in and claim ownership beyond what is true and authentic, and luckily I don't see that too often.
And this is not a binary like you're either taking all the credit or you're failing and not taking any credit, right? There is a way to like sort of claim your credit in a broader sense.
Yeah. But I think like, to take it back to you, and I hear you're trying to kind of like think about this sector wide too, but I think you should be proud of the things that you should be proud of, and you should be good at telling those stories. But I wouldn't over-index on that, because I think what people really want is they want to be inspired about what they can help you build. So if you can tell a really good story about what that is, who you're becoming and how you're doing that, and what opportunities people have to come alongside you to make that happen, that's how I would think about it.
Yeah, I realize for me on a personal level, like, what do I do with all of this momentum? I think it's like, there's two things that come to mind. One, I wonder if I should have like already had the answer to this question before the momentum hit,
Sure. Okay.
I wish there's a part of me that wishes like, oh, now if I were a few steps further down the road here, I could take better advantage of this moment.
Yeah.
But I didn't. And so here I am, right? And I've got a couple of good ideas. Like I know all of these ideas are viable.
Yeah.
And so really the work that I need to do right now is sort of like determine sort of financial and impact possibility in each of these lanes.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing I would just say is like, don't skip the celebration. Like, take a moment and be like, we did this for you, for your team, for the people who have supported you. Like, because I do think that is actually something we're not very good at times in this sector, which is like celebrating the wins. And like, this work can be hard. It can be tiresome. It can be, people burn out all the time. I'm not saying that's happening for you all, but like, I think part of that is because like in the sector, we naturally have a tendency to like solve the next problem, get to the next level. And that's good to a degree. And I struggle with this myself too. Don't get me wrong, but I think taking the time to be like, hey, we did that. Like, I mean, I even look at some of the stuff that we do today and like where we are as an agency. And like, it's really easy for me to fall into like, this thing's not right. This thing's not right. We are not here. We didn't hit this goal. But also, if you told me 16 years ago I'd be doing what I do today, I'd be like, you're effing crazy. Yeah. So like,
I freaking killed it. Yeah.
So I think like, I guess my off the cuff advice here is like, sit with that, celebrate it, pat yourself on the back, do the same for you and your team. And then take advantage of this opportunity that you have to be in this position of stability, and then get back to the imagination table. And then then you get to like, and to me, like, that's my favorite table to be at. I think it is for you too.
Yeah,
right?
it is. It really is.
So I don't know. Hopefully that's helpful.
Well, I mean, another takeaway here is like, a few of the takeaways so far have been, I think celebrating wins is a big one. I think two is there's a sort of trust myself and trust the work that I've already done.
Yep.
And that there are some great ideas on the table now. 3, don't fall into the trap of going to autopilot.
Yeah.
Because maybe this is sort of an inflection point where some organizations take a wrong turn by not keep moving.
Yep.
So keep the foot on the gas and lean into what I know I'm good at and what I know has worked, which has been big, creative, different, bold sort of swings.
Yeah. And I would say like one thing that sort of complicates that last takeaway, what got you here may not be what gets you to the next level.
Yeah.
So you have to be open to that too. And I think sometimes I've noticed that leaders and orgs will get to a certain level and a strategy got them there and that worked. And they're like, well, that's our strategy and we're going to stick to it because we've seen it work, but it's not actually the right strategy for the next level. I don't know if that's true for you at this stage.
Well, it is in the sense that like a lot of the first few years have been about establishing the strategy.
Yeah.
And the question in front of me right now is not what's my strategy. The question is, what's the tactic
Yeah.
that's actually going to help us execute
Right.
most quickly and most effectively.
Well, and I'm also hearing, and do I try and do many things or just one thing? Like,
Yeah.
where do you, that like allocation of time and energy and resources too, which is going to be different for everyone.
Yeah. That's not a sweeping generalization there. So for those leaders who find themselves in this like position with momentum, what advice would you give them to take the most advantage of it?
I mean, to me, like if you're in a position of stability, I guess you could also start to think about like now we can start to make investments, like not necessarily even financial investments, but it's like, okay, like do a bit of a like what, like put everything on the table. Like where are we strong? Where are we weak? And like where, like what moves am I going to play in the game next? Right? Like that's the way that I would really think about it. And then I would say like take advantage of your organizational nervous system's state of being calm and cool and collected and make better choices because of that. Because I think you can make better, more imaginative and more creative choices in those moments than when you're up with your back against the wall and you're kind of more in that survival mode where like, hey, we've all been there and you got to be good at that time too. But those decisions are often not the ones that are actually going to like help you get to the next level. And so when you're in this state, you have a little bit more luxury and time and space to think big, to think creatively, to rethink, to be introspective, to do deeper listening. Now, you don't want to go so far down that path that like you stall out, but you get to kind of like make decisions from a different point of view, which I think is a really cool opportunity. So I would take advantage of it.
All right. Well, I mean, thank you for sort of like coaching me through this. You know, what I'm taking away is for all of us in this position, you know, some of the themes that are occurring to me is like there's an element of being true to yourself in this, of like,
Yeah,
you know, recognizing what got you here, being humble that it might not be the same thing that gets you to the next place, but trusting in yourself and in your team because you wouldn't be here
Yep.
unless there was something good there. Right?
Yep.
I think taking the time to appreciate, but also to reflect and to plan. Like, I think that is a luxury we don't always have.
Yep.
So take advantage of that. And then also own your wins, obviously in a respectful way of like the ecosystem and other contributors, but like own the wins and don't be afraid to tell funders about them in a way.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I hope that everyone who's listening gets a chance to be in that state. Because I know when I've been in that state, it just feels really good. And then it leads to just more goodness.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for helping me think through this, Eric.
Yeah, anytime, man.
If you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to hit like and subscribe, or even leave us a comment. It really helps. Thank you. And thank you for all that you do for your cause and for being part of the movement to move humanity and the planet forward.